So the Prophet ﷺ said in this hadith, تَمْرُقُ مَارِقَةٌ عِنْدَ فِرْقَةٍ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ يَقْتُلُهَا أَوْلَى الطَّائِفَتَيْنِ بِالْحَقِّ. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying in this hadith that a group will emerge from a group of Muslims, and they will be killed by the closer of the two groups to the truth. So the two groups of Muslims were Ali and Muawiyah, and a group emerges from one, as the Prophet ﷺ said, and then they will be killed by the one that's closer to the truth. And this is a hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, and he clearly shows the army of Ali radiallahu anhu closer to the truth, and that they're going to kill the Khawarij. So then, after taking care of the Khawarij, Ali commands his army to go to Sham to finish the issue with Muawiyah. And while all of this is going on, the people in Sham, this is where the problems start. The people in Sham said, as long as Ali is removed, as long as he was removed by the two arbitrators, then we'll pledge to Muawiyah. And they pledged to Muawiyah as the new Khalifa. So now for the first time, there are two Khulafa for the Muslim Ummah. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, Egypt starts going out of control. Ali radiallahu anhu had put Qais ibn Sa'd ibn Ubadah in Egypt, and he took the pledge for Ali, except for a group of companions who said, we'll only pledge after the murderers of Uthman are killed. So they gathered in a place called Kharabta in Egypt. And Ali feared that the group of Kharabta would increase. So Ali told Qais to take the pledge from them. So Qais goes to them and they refuse. They say, only after we avenge the death of Uthman. So then Qais sends this response to Ali radiallahu anhu. So he said, إِنَّ مُعْظَمِ النَّارِ مِنْ مُسْتَصْغَرِ الشَّرَرِ. He's saying that the majority of huge fires are because of small sparks. So what he's saying is that if we leave this group, it's going to become a big problem. So he sends to Qais, saying, do not leave them and take the pledge, even if you have to fight them upon that. If they refuse, fight them and get the pledge by force. So then Qais sent back saying, I can't fight them. They're all Sahaba. All the people in Kharabta are Sahaba. Qais sent back saying, I can't fight them. So then Ali was afraid that he is going to lose Egypt. It's going to go out of control. He felt that Qais was too soft on them. So he removed Qais and sent Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr to end the fitna of Kharabta. So then Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr asked for the bay'ah from them, and they refused. So he sent them a platoon to force them upon the bay'ah. And they fought, and Muhammad's platoon was destroyed. So then he gathered another army, and he sent it to them. The group in Kharabta was under Muawiyah ibn Khudayj as-Sukuni radiallahu anhu. He came and he fought against the platoon of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, and they lost again. So then Muawiyah ibn Khudayj announced his demand to avenge the blood of Uthman, and he requested of people to join him. So then Ali radiallahu anhu saw that even Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was not able to take care of them. So he sent Al-Ashtar al-Nukha'i. And we know Al-Ashtar as a warrior, and we know him to be amongst the people of Fitna. So he sent them Al-Ashtar al-Nukha'i. And when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu hears of the news of the people of Egypt, now these are people who are on the same side of Muawiyah, he sends them an army of 6,000 under the leadership of Amr ibn al-As. He wants to join them because they're demanding to avenge the blood of Uthman. He sends them an army of 6,000 under Amr ibn al-As. And both armies now are heading to Egypt. The army of Muawiyah under Amr ibn al-As and the army of Al-Ashtar al-Nukha'i. On the way to Egypt, Al-Ashtar drinks some poisoned honey and he dies. Some narrations will tell you that it was Muawiyah who sent him the poison, but that is not confirmed. So Muawiyah, when he hears of the death of Al-Ashtar, he says that Inna lillahi, to Allah are soldiers of honey. So he's saying that this honey was one of the soldiers of Allah, and it took care of this man, Al-Ashtar al-Nukha'i, because the honey was poisoned. So then Amr ibn al-As enters Egypt. When the people in Kharabta hear of him, they go and join him. And then all of Egypt agrees to join them, and now they have a large army. So then Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr gathers people, the people in his army, and they're only 2,000. And Kinan ibn Bishr was put in charge, and he tells them to advance. And Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr meanwhile gathered more people. He gets another 2,000. But Kinana's army, the first 2,000 that he prepared, reaches Amr, and Amr tells them to leave this affair and join us in avenging the blood of Uthman. And they refused. So they fought, and Kinana was defeated. So news of this reaches Egypt, and the army of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr starts to break apart. So now Amr ibn al-As's army enters Egypt, and he becomes the governor of Egypt. And Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr flees, and he tries to gather people. And Muawiyah ibn Khudayj, the leader of the group of Kharabta, followed him and caught up with him and fought with him, and Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr was killed. So now Egypt is under Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. News reaches Aisha radiallahu anha of the death of her brother Muhammad, and she was extremely saddened, and she took his children and she raised them radiallahu anha. And rahimahullah, he took part in the Fitna, and he was deceived by the people of Fitna, but he was from the atba' of the Sahaba, and he was not considered to be a Sahabi himself. While all this was going on in Egypt, things were happening in Basra. The people in Basra were still upset about the Battle of Al-Jamal, and they still want to revenge the murder of Uthman. So they start to communicate with Muawiyah, and he sends them Muawiyah ibn al-Hadrami, and he enters Basra secretly, and the people gather to him. Zayd ibn Abi Sufyan, he's famous as Zayd ibn Abi. He's known mostly in the books of history as Zayd ibn Abi. He was Zayd, the son of Abu Sufyan, and he is the half-brother of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. He was, even though he's the half-brother of Muawiyah, he was the governor of Iraq for Ali radiallahu anhu. And when he heard of Al-Hadrami, he started to call on the tribe of Uzd. And Ali was afraid that he will lose Basra now, so he sent Jariyah ibn Qudama at the head of reinforcements. So he joined Zayd ibn Abi, and they fought Ibn al-Hadrami and defeated him, and they killed him. So Basra is under Ali, still under Ali radiallahu anhu, but it's still boiling. It's not settled. So now the Hajj season comes, and there are two khulafa. And you know that the Khalifa is the one who goes out and leads the Hajj, or he appoints someone. So now there are two khulafa. Even though Ali radiallahu anhu is the correct Khalifa, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan has been given bay'ah as Khalifa. So Ali radiallahu anhu put Qithm ibn al-Abbas as the Amir of Hajj, and Muawiyah sends Yazid ibn Shajjara as the Amir of Hajj. So then both Amirs arrive at Hajj. So the companions in the Sahaba in Mecca, they met under Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, and they consulted with the people, and they agreed to not obey any of the Umara, neither Amir. They were not going to obey either of them because that would cause chaos. So they agreed upon a Sahabi, and he was Shayba ibn Uthman ibn Abi Talha from the people of Mecca. So they agreed to put him in charge, and that everyone, the masses, are going to obey him only. So he became the Amir of Hajj, and the others kept quiet. The other Umara, they kept quiet because they know it's going to be chaotic if they also try to be the Umara. So they all followed this man, radiallahu anhu. And at the end of Hajj, Ali radiallahu anhu started to gather the people again to fight. So at the end of the Hajj season, Yazid ibn Shajara, who was sent by Muawiyah as the Amir of Hajj, he takes over Mecca. So Ali radiallahu anhu starts to gather people to go fight him. So he starts to gather the people of Iraq, and they refuse to go out with him. He tries, and they refuse adamantly. So Yazid ibn Shajara now takes over Mecca. And now Muawiyah sees that Ali has no power, so he sent Busr ibn Arta'ah to Hijaz, to Medina and those areas. And then to Yemen, and he takes them for Muawiyah. And Ubaidullah ibn Abbas, who was the governor of Ali, was sent out. So now Yemen and Egypt and Hijaz, Medina and Mecca, left the control of Ali. He only has Iraq under him, and it's boiling. Even they are not content. And Muawiyah also has a Sham. Now the territory under Ali right now is decreasing, and Muawiyah's is increasing. So Ali sends an army to send Busr ibn Arta'ah out of Hijaz and Yemen. And they took him out of Yemen, and now they head towards Hijaz. So now Ali gets Yemen, or he wins Yemen over again, and now they start to head towards the area of Medina and Mecca. The area of Persia, or Faris, also starts to leave Ali. Because the governor there, Sahal ibn Hunayf, asked the people, and they refused, and they send him out. So he sent Zayd ibn Abi. Ali radiallahu anhu sent Zayd ibn Abi, who we mentioned him, the half-brother of Muawiyah, who is the governor of Basra. He sends him to Persia to bring it under control. And he got them back. And he was wise, and he was also stern. And he knew when to use which technique. And he, just through discourse, without any fighting, he's able to bring the area of Persia back under Ali. But there was still unrest. Nonetheless, it's under Ali radiallahu anhu right now. And all this within 4 years. All these problems that are happening are within 4 years. And the fitan start in Kufa, and the Khawarij start to show up in Kufa, the city of Ali radiallahu anhu. And they would oppose him even in the masjid. He's giving a khutbah, they interrupt him. La hukma illa lillah. Constantly causing problems. So Ali radiallahu anhu remains for 4 years and a half of his reign fighting the fitan, trying to stop one problem here, another one arises over there. Very difficult times. While all this internal fighting is going on, Heraclius sent an army to take over the lands of the Muslims. He sees them busy fighting with each other, so he says, I'll send an army to conquer their lands. And when the army reaches the edges of Sham, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu sent him a letter saying, Wallahi, if you don't return, I will pledge to the son of my uncle and will come to you. So, look how he was radiallahu anhu. He's willing to give up everything. Even though now he's winning more lands, he's willing to give all that up and give up the Khilafah and go pledge to Ali, all for the benefit of Islam. And we fight each other, but you don't come and take over our lands. So the Romans felt he was serious, and they withdrew. So every time Ali radiallahu anhu calmed down a place, another place goes boiling. And in Kufa they're not respecting him. And he gives an order, they don't obey him. So he spent most of his time just solving fitan and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would pray the whole night, and they described that he would cry deeply. And the rest of the time he's trying to help the people and to give to the poor. And he did all that he could radiallahu anhu. And he gave a khutbah showing his displeasure with the situation and saying how people were not loyal to him and they did not obey his commands and how they were treacherous. And he tells them in the khutbah that how Muawiyah's group obeys him. And he says, Oh Allah, that I have grown tired of them and they have grown tired of me, and that I have hated them and they have hated me, and to replace me with better. On one of the days, the Khawarij sat down to discuss the affairs of the Muslims and what's going on in the Ummah. So one of them said, the problems are all because of Muawiyah. And another said, rather it's all because of Ali, who agreed to let people arbitrate in the religion of Allah. And the third one said, and Amr ibn al-As is not far from this. And he also has a hand in these problems. So between the three of them, they said, let's rid the people of these three. And they agreed to murder all of them on the same time after Fajr prayer in the 17th of Ramadan in the 40th year after the Hijrah. So Al-Burq ibn Abdullah al-Tamimi goes to Sham to kill Muawiyah, to assassinate Muawiyah. And he prayed Fajr with the people behind Muawiyah. And when he left the masjid, when Muawiyah is leaving the masjid, Al-Burq lifted his sword, but Muawiyah saw him lift the sword. So he jumped out of his way. So Al-Burq struck Muawiyah's posterior and he cut it off. And the sword that he used had poison in it. He had poisoned the sword. So Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, though, he was healed and he was saved. And he had his would-be assassin killed. The doctor who came to him and told him, I have two cures. One is cauterization with fire, and the other, it's a medicine that I will give you to drink. But if you drink it, you will become sterile. You will not have any more children after that. So Muawiyah radiallahu anhu said, I have no patience with fire. So he drank the medicine, and subhanAllah, after that he never had any more children. And after that, he assigned guards, like bodyguards to the Amir, because of this attempted assassination. So we move now to the person who was assigned to assassinate Amr ibn al-As. So the man who was sent goes, and he also prays Fajr behind Amr ibn al-As. And after the Salah, he jumped to kill Amr, and he stabbed him and he killed him. And he says, Allahu Akbar. And he was surprised to find that Amr on that day was sick, and sent in his place Kharija ibn Hudhafa as-Suhmi. So Amr radiallahu anhu was saved. And Allah decreed that Amr radiallahu anhu was going to be saved on that day. So they caught the man, and he killed the wrong person. So now we move to Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim, who came to Al-Kufa on that same day. And when Ali radiallahu anhu entered the masjid, he started to call people, Ayyuhan nas, as-salah, 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 as-salah. He's calling people to salah. And then Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim attacks him. He struck him saying, Al-hukmu lillah, la lak ya Ali, wa la li ashabik. He's saying that the judgment is to Allah, not to you, O Ali, and not to your companions. And he struck him. He struck him in his head, and he hit him very hard. And it was a huge wound. But Ali radiallahu anhu did not die immediately. And the sword was poisoned as well. So when he was struck, he said, لا يفوتنكم الرجل. Do not let the man escape. So they caught the man. So then Ali commands Ju'da ibn Hubayra to lead the people in Fajr prayer. And Ali says, a soul for a soul. If I die, kill him as he killed me. If not, if I don't die and I make it through this, await my decision. And he gives advice to his sons and to his friends. And he says, O sons of Abdul Muttalib, do not shed blood saying Amir al-Mu'mineen has been killed. Nah, don't start avenging my blood. He learned the lesson from what happened to Uthman radiallahu anhu. So he's telling them, do not shed blood saying Amir al-Mu'mineen has been killed. Verily none should be killed except my killer. Don't start bloodshed and start killing people left and right. A soul for a soul. And then he says to Al-Hasan, he says, Undur ya Hasan, look, if I die, whoever struck me this blow, then it's a blow for a blow. And do not make tamthil on the man. Do not disfigure him after he's dead. For I heard the Prophet ﷺ say, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْمُثْلَ وَلَوْ بِالْكَلْبِ الْعَقُورِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, beware, be far away from, beware of al-muthla, disfiguring the dead. Even if it's a dead dog, do not disfigure it. And then Jundub ibn Abdullah enters and he says, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, if we lose you, and I hope we don't, should we pledge to Al-Hasan? If you die, should we pledge to your son Al-Hasan? And then Ali radiallahu anhu tells him, I don't order you, nor do I prevent you. Antum absar. That you have better judgment in this issue. I don't order you to pledge to Hasan, nor do I prevent you from pledging to him. Then he calls Al-Hasan and Hussein, calls them near, and he tells them, he says to them, I advise you with the taqwa of Allah, and do not desire the dunya, even if it calls you to it. And do not cry over something that gets away from you, and speak the truth, and have mercy on the orphan, and assist the lost, and work for the next life, and be the opponent of the oppressor, and the supporter of the oppressed. Giving them beautiful, beautiful advice, and act on what is in the book of Allah. And do not fear those who will blame you for doing what is right. And then he turned to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya is the other son of Ali radiallahu anhu. He's known as Muhammad ibn Hanafiya because of his mother. That's how they distinguished him. And he was also of the great scholars and of the great Muslims in the Ummah. He turns to him and he says, have you learned what I advised your brothers with? And he says, yes. He says, I advise you with the same. And I advise you to have the respect of your brothers. Why? Because of the great rights they have upon you. And who is the grandfather of his brothers? The Prophet ﷺ. And don't undertake any affair without them. And then he says to Al-Hasan and Hussein, I advise you to take care of him, for he is your brother and the son of your father, and you know that your father used to love him. And then he tells Al-Hasan, O son, I advise you with the taqwa of Allah and establishing the salah in its time. Allahu Akbar. This is Ali radiallahu anhu at the time of his death, advising his righteous son to establish the salah in its time, and paying the zakah in its place, and perfecting wudu. For there is no salah except with tahur, except with purification. And I advise you to forgive others, and to control your temper, and the ties of the wombs, and clemency with the ignorant, and understanding of religion, and being conclusive in affairs, meaning don't rush to a decision, and being close to the Qur'an, and being good to your neighbor, and commanding that which is good, and forbidding that which is evil, and abstaining from the haram. And he kept on reminding him and advising him until he passed away, radiallahu anhu. And then he was washed by Al-Hasan and Al-Husayn and Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. And Al-Hasan led the funeral prayers, and he made 7 takbirs. And he was killed, radiallahu anhu. He had remained alive Friday and Saturday, and then died on Sunday night. And he was buried in Al-Kufa. So Ali radiallahu anhu dies at the age of 63 years old. And his reign was for a period of 4 years and 9 months. And this marks the passing away of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, the second man to become a Muslim and the son-in-law of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of the Sahaba who died and were killed during the reign of Ali radiallahu anhu are Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, and Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, and Talha ibn Ubaidullah, and Zayd ibn Sawhan, and Salman al-Farisi, Salman the Persian, and Hind ibn Abi Hala. And who is Hind ibn Abi Hala? He's the son of Khadija radiallahu anha. He was a Sahabi. He was the son of Khadija radiallahu anha from another husband, from Abu Hala. And Uwais al-Qarni, and Khabbab ibn al-Arat radiallahu anhu, and Ammar ibn Yasir, and Sahl ibn Hanif, and Suhaib al-Rumi, the Roman, and Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu, the one who narrates the hadith of the Dajjal, and Abu Rafi', the Mawla, the freed slave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, amongst others, radiallahu anhum ajma'een. May Allah be pleased with all of them. So the people then pledged to Al-Hasan ibn Ali, the grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he used to resemble the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he looked like him. People, they used to say that when they saw him, they remembered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about him, Allahumma inni uhibbuhu fa'ahibbahu. Oh Allah, I love him, so love him and love those who love him. This hadith is in Bukhari. And he, just so we know more about him, was born in the middle of Ramadan in the 3rd year after the Hijrah. And the Prophet ﷺ named him Al-Hasan. Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said that the Prophet ﷺ was carrying Al-Hasan on his shoulders, when Al-Hasan was a young boy, on his shoulders. So a man saw this, and he said, نِعْمَ الْمَرْكِبْ رَكَبْتِ يَا غُلَامٍ. He tells him, what a good ride you have, young boy. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَنِعْمَ الرَّاكِبُ. And what a good rider he is. And then Bukhari rahimahullah narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, this son of mine is a Sayyid, is a leader, and perhaps Allah will use him to reconcile between 2 large groups of mu'mineen. So the Prophet ﷺ describes both groups as being believers, as being mu'mineen. And Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu was 7 years old when the Prophet ﷺ died. And Al-Hasan used to be given good treatment with the people of Badr. Why? Because of his special place with the Prophet ﷺ. And when Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu becomes a Khalifa, his father Ali had prepared an army to send to Sham. And in charge of it was Qais ibn Sa'd. And the army continues. So when they pledged to Al-Hasan, they said, we pledge to you upon the book of Allah and the sunnah of His Messenger and the way of your father. So then he says to them, upon the book of Allah and the sunnah of His Messenger, and that is enough. And to fight whomever I fight and make peace with whomever I make peace with. So some pledged and others didn't, saying, we fear that you're going to make peace. He insisted that you pledge, it's a pledge of obedience. If I fight, you fight with me. And if I make peace, you make peace. So some of them refused, and they went to Al-Husayn, the younger brother of Al-Hasan. And they said to him, we'll pledge to you. And he tells them, no, by Allah, la wallah, not while Al-Hasan is alive. So they went back and they pledged to Al-Hasan. So then Al-Hasan looked at the affair of Muslims, and his heart moved towards making peace. So he sent to Muawiyah. And he asked him for peace, and he stipulated. He says, I'll abdicate, I'll leave the Khilafah and make peace, but with certain stipulations. So Muawiyah, when he saw this, he sent him a letter that was sealed.